I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7:06 p.m. We'll take a moment of silence to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll have the coordinator call the roll.
Ms. Jackson, Mr. Rollins, Mr. Scrivano,
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch,
Here.
Mr. Siegel,
Here.
Mr. Connor,
Here.
Mr. Escobedo. With 4 present, 3 absent, we have a quorum.
Tonight, we have set time aside for the public hearing on the tentative budget for 2016-17. We will now call on any individuals who have submitted public comment cards to speak on this issue, and there are none. So we will move on then and recognize and celebrate the outstanding contributions of our students and staff, and Earl Dotson Jr. is here to do that. I don't think so. I didn't get any card on that.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members. The Junior League of Rockford piloted a program in Rockford Public Schools 3 years ago to help children get access to food and overcome food insecurity. In its first year, the Backpack Buddies program provided weekly meals to 25 students at McIntosh Elementary School. The program gradually rolled out to additional students in schools. This past year, Backpack Buddies supported 5 schools and 135 students. More than 6,600 food bags were distributed to our students at Bayer, Ellis, Lewis Lemon, McIntosh, and King. In addition to providing food, the Junior League has provided resources to families enrolled in the Backpack Buddies program, like education on making healthy choices, preparing healthy meals on a budget, and having an active lifestyle. Thank you, Junior League, for supporting Rockford Public Schools and its families. And we have the president and other representatives, our own Amy Ekstrom, who is a member of the Junior League. They're all here this evening. So please join me in thanking them for their contributions to our schools. Thank you, sir. That is all.
We are now at the petitions and communications portion of our meeting when we invite the public to make comments. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the rights of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires that there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communications portions of our agenda. According to our Board Policy 2.230, the public comments portion of the meeting is limited to a total of 30 minutes. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it's appropriate, you'll be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. In order to allow sufficient time for the business of the board and to conduct our meeting in an efficient and effective manner, we are requesting that you comply with the guidelines that are posted, and each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. Since there are more than, well, we don't have more than 15 speakers, but we do have a clock on the wall that would be helpful to guide you on your 2-minute time limit. It's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or discuss matters that would be otherwise confidential in such open meetings. I will call 2 names at one time, and the first one will come up, and the second one, if you would move up to the front and be ready to speak and sit in the vacant chair by the podium there. And we appreciate all that you do in bringing this subject areas that you want to talk about, and the interest and your cooperation, our guidelines is appreciated. So our first speaker tonight is Sam Schmidt, to be followed by Wendy Vaughn. And if you would, Sam, if you would hit the red light button there, we'll turn the microphone on. There you go.
Thank you. I'm Sam Schmitz. I'm the president of Goodwill Northern Illinois. And I'm also the chairperson for the Human and Public Service Council under the Academy Initiative for the districts. I've served in that capacity almost since day one. So I'm here tonight to talk about supporting the youth court. I went back to my notes this morning, way back to the winter of 2013. Our council with the business community and the educators were trying to figure out what we were going to do for some projects to kind of kickstart the academy in Jefferson. And a lady by the name of Jessie Piskey came to one of our meetings. She's originally from Madison, transferred to Rockford, and she shared with the council her efforts in working in the Madison School District on a youth court. The concept was very intriguing to our group. Wendy Vaughn, Attorney Wendy Vaughn, who's going to speak next, headed up a subcommittee of the council. We had members including Judge Holmgren, Marianne Kamari, a lot of community members really went into a research mode on this, trips to Madison, trips to Aurora, and finally, to make a long story short, within the 2-minute period, we had an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Rockford, Winnebago County, and District 205, and that in and of itself is quite an accomplishment, but it outlined how the youth court would operate. Since that time, over 200, my understanding is over 200 students have benefited from this program. Not only students who have been able to keep a criminal record off their ledger, but at the same time, there's students that serve on the youth court who are making decisions on their peers. And so I think the youth court really epitomizes what the academy is about. I strongly recommend you find the resources. We'll do anything we can to help, but certainly a critical program for the continuation of the youth court and everything that the academies mean. So thank you.
Sam. Wendy Vaughn, to be followed by Quetzia Ramirez.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Vaughn, and as Sam said, I too have been involved with the Human and Public Services College and Career Readiness Council, as well as the Jefferson High School Academic Support Team since it started. I've also chaired this youth court subcommittee. When I was last here, youth court was just an idea. It was a pilot project. It was something we wanted to start at Jefferson High School. Since that time, youth court has proven a track record of success in all 4 of Rockford's 4 primary traditional high schools. We have lots of kids participating, and the success is widespread. There's success for students who are respondents in this program, who are given the opportunity to experience a restorative justice approach, who are held accountable, but also encouraged and inspired to get the help that they need and to lead a life that's free of crime, to stay in school and to get the education they need to contribute to their school and to our community long term. The many youth court council members, of which there are about 145, really are the success of this program. These are students who receive leadership training, who learn about careers in human and public services, who get a chance to go on field trips like coming to the College of Law down at NIU campus in DeKalb to meet with lawyers and learn about law school. All of those students are successful because they get these skills and they bring them back to their schools. RPS itself succeeds when youth court succeeds. This is a partnership that has brought together community organizations such as Rosecrans, Youth Services Network, Goodwill, the NIU College of Law, with public organizations like the City of Rockford, the county, the school district, and nonprofit funders like the Community Foundation of Illinois and the Kiwanis Club. I urge all of you to do what you can to support youth court, and I would love to talk with you more about the specific successes that we've had. Thank you.
Ms. Ramirez, to be followed by Nathan Weimerserk.
Good afternoon. My name is Quetzia Ramirez. thankfully, I have been able to be a member of Youth Court for the past 3 years. In this Youth Court, for the past 3 years, I have learned so much, and I am very grateful that I was given the opportunity to join, not only because I learned a lot about myself, but I learned a lot about my peers. Knowing that sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we feel that given a second chance is always a really good feeling. Knowing that we have someone there right by our side next to us, willing to help us out and pick us off the ground, maybe even pick up our us out of the hole we are already in. Knowing that maybe back at home we have our own struggles, and I understand that sometimes the mistakes that my peers make aren't necessarily because, they really want to. Sometimes it's because they have problems and struggles back at home. Sometimes it's because they have problems at school. We don't necessarily know what goes on in their mind. We are given information and facts about what happens at the scene that they committed, but we don't necessarily get facts about what goes on in their mind. And understanding that sometimes the mistakes they make, of course they have consequences, but it's always good to know that we always have someone next to us and that will be willing to help us out whenever we need. In the future, if you're ever considering of getting rid of Youth Court, I really hope that you don't, because as I like to think of it, Youth Court is like that light at the end of the tunnel. That helping hand that we probably don't even, that the students probably don't have at the very beginning. Youth Court is just a light of hope, and it only brings them to success. And maybe in the future they will come to thank you for giving them that opportunity, that second chance, in letting them think about what they did, and going from there and showing their peers what they learned. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan?
I'm Nathan. I'm a council member for 2 years. Personally, this program has been pretty much life-changing. It has changed me personally to an extent that's unimaginable. I came into Youth Court just maybe thinking about being a lawyer, also wanted to be multiple other things, had no idea what I wanted to be. During Youth Court, we took a field trip, me and my fellow my members, we all took a field trip to NIU Law School. There, I actually met with some of the fellow lawyers and some other professors, and I learned that I really, really would love to be a lawyer. And it's what I plan on doing. So it's changed my future. And not only has it changed me, it's changed some of the respondents. I've seen respondents come in and they're shy and they're truly ashamed. And I've seen other respondents come in and they're not ashamed. But we are taking them and giving them the hand and showing them that they need to take responsibility for their actions. And this is like we are giving them, like Ketsia said, that helping hand, that hand that they need to succeed in this world. Everyone makes mistakes. We are the second chance, and if you get rid of this program, I feel like now these students are stuck going through the regular court system, which sometimes can be, in my opinion, kind of cruel. So what are we going to do about that? Like, this program has not only changed me, it's changed the respondents, it's changed me as a leader, it's made me more aware of what others need. I have made mistakes. I'm pretty sure almost every council member has made mistakes, but we all have fixed them. And we've all taken responsibility for our mistakes. And for me personally, a big part of that, fixing those mistakes, has come from the experience that I've learned through Youth Court.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate your comments. Are there any board member comments at this time? I have one. There's a special lady in the back of the room named Mary Fisher, who is served as the manager of health services for how many years? 11 years, and will be taking on a position back at a school, I understand, at the next year. So on behalf of the entire board, we want to thank you for your service and the great job you've done. You were a key person involved in the health clinic at Auburn High School, for sure. We appreciate the great job that you did. So thank you, Mary. How was that? Did I embarrass you? Okay, good, good, okay. Okay, we'll move on then to the consent items, including the meeting minutes of June 14th, 2016, the accounts payable report, payroll, purchase orders, construction bid request log, and air travel. The bid recommendations, 16-55 for musical instruments, 16-62, which is for the Washington Academy renovations rebid, 16-63, the Johnson Elementary School modular classroom buildings, 1664, the Washington Academy asbestos abatement project, the recurring contracts for AT&T Internet service, and the AT&T contract, the property casualty, student accident program liability insurance renewal, Youth Services Network, and McGuire Woods Consulting LLC contract. The other consent items, including the monthly investment report for May 2016, the interest transfer for May 2016, the financial results year-to-date through May of 2016, the REA Memorandum of Understanding for RPS family attendance, and credible movement for speech and language pathologists and psychologists, the Memorandum of Understanding for RPS Employer Assisted Housing Program, and the paid leave. Let's see if there's more on the next page. The prevailing wage resolution and the Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor, second by Mr. Siegel. Are there any consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. McCulloch?
11, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Any others? Mr. Siegel?
9A and 10A.
Mr. Connor?
10D.
Okay, so we'll call the roll, then have the coordinator call the roll then on the approval of consent items not pulled. Did you have another one? Okay,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, 10C, please.
so I have 9A, 10A, 10C, 10D, 11C through H. So everything else is okay? So we'll call a motion, we'll call the roll on the approval of the items not pulled.
Ms. Jackson? Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
Okay, now I'll take a motion for 9A, which is the approval of the musical instruments.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Connor, second. Questions or discussion? Mr. Siegel?
Is this a district-wide inventory of instruments, or are these going to specific schools?
The instrument purchase is designed to fill gaps at schools in need. So they're budgeted for when necessary. We purchased instruments, according to my understanding, a few years ago, and these are replacement instruments for those that cannot be fixed, and also instruments to expand the program.
Are there certain schools that are gaining more of these, more of the expansion?
I believe they're going to the schools in need, so it depends on enrollment. Like, for example, when students register for a band class or an orchestra, that's where the instruments would go. Based on the inventory from last year, this is where the bid was developed for the instruments for this purchase.
So this is reflective of maybe some increased interest in band?
Correct.
Mr. Connor?
How many of these are local vendors?
I do not know how many are local vendors.
Are any of them?
Not to my knowledge. The bid was put out to anybody who put in for it. I know that a couple of them are vendors that purchase instruments from overseas. These are some of the same vendors that were used in past purchases.
Right. So I guess just my quick comment. I mean, I'm absolutely in favor of the arts programs and musical instruments. I think the one thing that I would least like to make us aware of, we do try to encourage buying from local vendors for a lot of reasons, and it would be something that I think as a standard, that's a stat that we'd like to have so that we know who we're supporting that's local vendors, and if not, then we'd like to know that.
Thank you.
I'll let the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of 9A musical instrument bid.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
And I'll take a motion for the approval of item 10A, which is the AT&T Internet Service.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor. Second.
Second.
9B was not pulled. Okay. So we have a motion and a second for 10A. Any questions or discussion, Mr. Siegel?
Have the terms of the E-rate rider ever not been met? Because it looks like there's a really gigantic discount for satisfying the terms of the E-rate rider, but just out of curiosity, and hate to lose 90% of.
No, the rider has never been met. Actually, it keeps going up a little bit on the reimbursement. Initially, it was based off of your free and reduced. Now that we're on CEP, they have a sliding formula in there. We've been receiving this ever since E-rate's been in place. This is for all our telecommunications that we have, for all our internet and some priority 2 funding for some switches, wireless access points, and all networking equipment too.
Okay.
So we're very sure that we'll get this.
Okay, yeah, it makes it obviously very, very affordable. Just making sure that we always get that. Cool, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Now the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 10A, the AT&T Internet Service.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses and 3 absent.
And I'll take a motion and a second for item 10C, which is the Property Casualty Student Accident Program Liability Insurance bid.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion?
Actually, I don't think it was a bid, it's a recurring contract.
It's a renewal, yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
my question, that is my question, about whether or not we sent it out for bid, because it seems that it's always good at some point in time to see if what we're paying is what we should be paying. So did this go out, was there a reason that it didn't go out for bid?
Yes, it did not go out for bid. We're part of a what do I want to call it, a pool, a liability pool, and actually the rates went down from last year. So we continue to look at those rates. It's the collective liability pool for all Illinois schools essentially that want to be in that pool are in that pool. And so and again.
And so we have compared with other ways to, or other insurance coverage for this, and we see that the pool is a cheaper way to go. Do we know that? I mean, we don't have the numbers as a board.
Right. I did not compare them this year because they went down. I wasn't concerned about it, but we can definitely do it for
Could have
next
gone
year.
down on theirs, too.
Ms. Holden?
Pardon?
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to comment, Ms.
Yeah,
Holden?
there are other pools, and I understand from Mr. McConaughey, they are going to look at possibly bidding it out next year.
If I could add one thing, that's absolutely true, because we thought we should be looking at other sources for comparison. The other thing that a lot of folks don't realize is that the pool itself every year goes out for competitive bid on every form of insurance. And so actually they're doing that on our
Right.
behalf.
Okay, great. Any
Thank
other-
you.
Mr. Connor, you have a question?
Yep, 2 quick points. One is, we talked about this when this came up, so I very much support this. The collective purchasing power of this, just from the public standpoint, collectively, if you were to go out individually, and I think there's roughly 15 different kinds of coverages, if you were to go out and do that, it would be much more expensive per line item. That's one. And 2 is on the comparatives, I agree that we should always look and see, but being part of the insurance industry, I can tell you that rates going down is really not something that occurs very often. So I have to say overall that this consortium has done a pretty good job on this, and I assume that there are some subtleties to this. So I commend and say, I know it's a big number, but really, this is a good idea.
Call the roll on the approval of item 10C, which is the property casualty student accident program liability insurance renewal.
Mr. Siegel,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano,
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch.
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
I'll now ask for a motion and a second to approve the youth services recurring contract.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Questions and discussion?
Uh,
Mr. Connor.
Just to say it is a great program. I'm glad to hear that we had folks here that have experienced it, but this is something that we talked a great deal about when this program came up, and
This is not the youth court. This is
this
is youth service. This is the truancy program, correct?
sorry,
Ms. Hyde
Got my
Carter, is that
names.
correct? Yeah.
But maybe Ms.
Okay.
Hyde Carter could give us an update.
That was my fault.
Okay, that's all right. Ms. Hyde Carter, you've been asked to give an overview on this. This is the truancy program, right?
This is a recurring contract with the Rockford School Board, and I guess I would ask Ms. McCulloch if she has specifics that she wants me to share with the board this
Yeah, if you
evening.
could share changes in, I mean, this is the one for attendance. We have behavior intervention specialists. There's 2 categories of, there's the attendance specialist, behavior specialist. And you might share how many schools they're at and what the outcome was this last year, because we did drop our truancy rates. And so if you could just, so that we all understand.
Okay, well, just as a brief overview, the ACS, or the Behavior Intervention Specialists, work with the ACS, or the Connected Schools model. That was presented at 2 board meetings ago. So I'll just focus basically on the truancy. We have been working with YSN services since 2012. Since then, our chronic truancy rate has declined significantly. Right now, we're lower than the state average, and we're reporting a 93.9% as of fiscal year 2015 attendance rate. Basically speaking with our finance committee, for every 1% of attendance rate that the district improves, that brings in $677,310 annually. The contract services with youth services also brings a significant savings regarding the costs per staff member to actually execute those services. We currently have 13 attendance specialists throughout our district serving our 45 schools, and we also have 10 behavior intervention specialists serving schools at the elementary level.
And is there any change in the contract for next year, or are we staying at those levels?
Basically, we're staying at those levels, yes.
And the 93% was our average?
93.9.
And the state's is?
94.
Thank you. I'm
You're
for doing that
welcome.
on the fly.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? Now I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 10D, the Youth Services Network recurring contract.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano,
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch,
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
I'll now take a motion and a second for the approval of item 11C, which are the financial results through May 2016.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Ms. McCulloch. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I pulled this because I was going to ask finance for a quick overview where we're at with our finances at the end of the year, because tonight we're voting on next year's budget. And so as a precursor to where we came in this year, I mean, we're not going through the whole piece again. And I do realize that we still have a month out, and there's a lot of things that happened in that last month. But the way that these are written is comparative to where we were at the same time last year. So if you can just give us the snapshot.
Okay, if looking at, just to give you a brief overview, in the past, we haven't brought in the June financial information, and because this year that we are doing the quarterly treasurer's report, so in August, we'll give you that before the auditor, we get the audited financials, so we'll be doing that in August to give you an update. Looking at the financials, if you look at them, kind of comparing the 2 years, to me, it looked, we were pretty much on track with last year. And looking at the overall, what I'm projecting out, I really feel like we're still on track. In fact, feeling good about the property taxes. We just got our 56 million yesterday, so that, so that's good news that we're getting our property taxes in on timely. So it appears to me that we're on track of what our projections were. It doesn't seem like anything's one way or the other, or anything's off kilter at all. So to me, we're continuing in the appropriate direction and heading down the right path.
Well, and I guess I asked the question in part, we have, compared to last year at this time, our expenditures are up, like, I think 17.1 million. Our revenue is also up, so that helps offset that, but the consolidated deficit for all funds is higher, which looks like the difference between that revenue and expenditure. So just kind of what changes, why we're off this year?
You have to remember, when you're looking at that very first piece, when you're looking at the consolidated of all the funds, that's including the construction funds and all of that. So you really want to look at the operating funds. That's a better picture of what's happening. So you really want to look at just the operating funds piece of that. And if you look at that, we're pretty close. Again, you have to remember that that consolidated number, we've done a little bit less, that the increase in the larger increase also includes the bond issue we had, so you got to kind of keep those pieces in mind as well.
But that's when I did look at that, the operating accounts, that variance is even higher. It's 33.1 million, or 28.9 million for the operating accounts. The deficit for the operating fund for the current year is 62. The prior year was 33.1. So it's almost a $30 million variance, and that was kind of what sparked it. Could be reading it wrong.
Are you on, what page are you on in the report?
It's just on the background analysis.
Oh, you're on the background.
I'm not doing the whole report.
Right,
That's
okay.
why I said I just wanted to understand this snapshot that we were given. And I would like to publicly apologize because I did not send her this question ahead of time.
Okay.
And so she is also on the fly, just like Miss Angela Hyde Carter, so thank you both for stepping up. And it's not that I wouldn't approve it, it's just, I'm certain there's other people who read these. I just know everybody goes home and
That 28 million that you're talking about, that is the consolidated. That is talking about the consolidated, not just the operating funds. So let me get you that, let me explain, let me look at the operating funds by themselves, and I can get you that information.
I would be just pleased to get that, that's fine, and again, it won't hold up my vote, but Mr. Connor, I'm gonna cede the floor.
Mr. Connor?
Yeah, so I guess the question, if I might say, though, is if you look in the first paragraph, are you saying that the expenditures are the 17.1? So when you were talking earlier about the debt and the construction, you're saying that that's relevant to the 17.1 number, that's the difference between the prior year and this year? Did I understand that correctly? Okay. She did say yes, for those of you that are at home.
Okay.
I think one of my questions is, I know you've talked a little bit about the accrual basis. Does that have anything to do with this, or is this truly the raw numbers on the expenditures? So is it hitting earlier would be the point? Yeah.
Yes, so for this year, we're doing accrual-based accounting. So through May, we're actually using all the expenditures through May, so we've accrued additional money for all the payrolls.
Right.
So the payrolls that we were paying in July and August for the prior year, that's already, a portion of those is already included in this year.
Yeah.
So when you look at the June financials, that information is truly what the teachers and those people that get paid.
It's the accrued amount, so it's essentially what we owe. So that going forward, that will kind of normalize. So I guess maybe the general question is, where would the concerns be as we look towards next year on the trending on the expenditures? Where do you think our risks are?
moving forward, well, for me, the biggest concern right now is the revenue side, just because we just don't know what the state is doing.
Sure, that's a given.
That's the biggest game in town.
But I'm thinking on the expenditures, so if the expenditures are up, then even though I understand the explanation, I guess the question is, are there certain leverage points on the expenditure side that right now we should have our eye on?
We need to continue, once in a while, we've been doing actually a pretty good job lately, is just watching what I want to call position creep, if you will. You keep seeing a few more, you want to add one more position to help out in one area, and we really need to watch that, because we want to make sure that we stay within the budget for those pieces. And Stacy's been doing a really good job this year to watching that. In the past, we haven't spent a lot of time doing that, but that's one area that really is something that you always watch. And then just really making sure that we're watching our targets for what we can absolutely, watch. I mean, there's areas that we can't really pay attention to. For example, electricity and those things, we have to make those payments.
Sure.
And so those are areas that we should continue to watch. But we have been really paying attention to the budgets, and we've put on what we've called the budget blockers to make sure that we don't go over budget for any areas that we can actually have control over. And another big area that we really need to watch, I would say, would be insurances. That's another big area for our health insurance, to make sure that, because we are self-funded, and we want to make sure that we're really hitting that self-funded pool.
So are we still, I'm glad you brought that one up. So I know when they talked, it's been a number of months ago, that potentially for next year there was the increase. So have we leveled off at all, or is that line still going up on the claim side?
I would say that I don't know how you word this exactly. We are continuing to have claims. Our claims are about right where we projected them to be, so in that way we're in good shape. But we projected for next year to be up about 6%,
Right.
and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. We just want to really make sure that we don't go any higher than that 6%.
Yeah. So the two areas of risk are, of course, open positions, which is typical, of course, but then the claims experience are the two.
Right. Those are really the two biggest areas.
I think the big question for me, Mary Ann, is whether or not we're 1 month away from the end of the fiscal year, and what's the likelihood that our expenses are going to be at budget. I know it's important to watch the trends year to year, but to me, I really want to know whether or not our expenses are at or below or over our budget.
If we continue on where we thought we were going to be in March, it really looked like to me that we're going to be really close to budget.
Okay.
I did a lot of projecting, and in my mind, we were like $1 million or $2 million one way or the other of the budget. So we're really close to the budget. I'm feeling pretty comfortable that we're going to be under budget, but it's going to be maybe $1 million.
Okay.
It's going to be close. It's going to be a close year.
That's good to hear. Martin?
Just to add on to Mary Ann, and she does a great job of crunching numbers. We're looking at, our latest figure that we're looking at for budget to actual for the end of this year, and it can vary still, is $1.6 million to the good. Now, to put that in perspective, that is 1/3 of 1% of the budget. And frankly, you have some good skills and some good luck when you come that close. We try to hit between we try to hit between 1% and 2%, and that's a very good, solid target. This is coming in right, as Mary Ann indicated, right at the budget, which, of course, we always hope to do.
Sure. Great. Okay, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of item 11C, the financial results year-to-date through May.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Mrs. McCulloch, may I, you want them to do separately? Okay, all right. Take a motion then on the approval of the REA Memorandum of Understanding for the Family Assistance Plan, which is 11D.
So moved. On D, it says family attendance. Is that
Family
what you meant?
attendance, that's
Yep.
correct.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Discussion or question?
Okay, so the reason I pulled these is, first of all, an understanding of what exactly we're doing here, and the fact that even though we agreed with a contract with the REA last year, there's been continued work coming to some collaborative decisions on areas that weren't determined during negotiations. So it's been ongoing. I think that's really important that we're having those conversations. And so those conversations has resulted in 4 additional changes or updates, or I'm not sure what we're going to call them. And so I've called them out each separately because, first of all, I think that we all need to, and the public as well, know the kind of things that have been discussed, and also for each of us to weigh in with a vote on them. I don't know if anybody has any objections to doing it separately, but I would appreciate that just so that we treat them with the respect and for all the time and energy that was put into coming to these. So whoever it is that would like to speak to each of them as they come up as to what exactly is the RPS family attendance MOU, and in part, I think it's helpful to hear the process too that got us to this point. I kind of glid over that. Glid is glid a word? Glided.
Dr. Jarrett, you want to take that one, or would you like Mrs. Holdley?
I can speak to the process. Ms. McCullough gave a very good summary of the amount of work that occurred, and Mr. Scrivano and Mr. Rollins served as part of our ongoing interest-based bargaining team that still meets on a quarterly basis even after the contract ended. These are the first 4 MOUs that we were able to bring forth as part of that process. To speak to the REA Memorandum of Understanding regarding family attendance, this considers the possibility of interested REA teachers who are also parents who live in the boundaries of the district having the opportunity to allow his or her child to attend the school he or she works at while providing his or her own transportation and not including any special access to any special programs or providing access to the zone pattern outside of that indicated decision. So this is something that's been in play and in discussion for over a year now, and this is one of 4 different agreements that will come before the board this evening. And as Mrs. McCullough indicated, a lot of hard work at the board, REA, and district level has gone into these agreements. There's certainly more conversations to come, and this is one of 4 that will be coming before you this evening.
The piece about them not moving after the 2016-17 school year, so we kind of make the adjustments for everybody this next year, and then obviously, if you have a student starting a school and you're teaching in that school, they would start. But
Correct.
Anybody actually moving schools is only through this next year.
Correct.
Super.
Okay. Mr. Connor?
2 points. One is, from the public standpoint, I think the context of this is that there's a flexibility being shown by board and administration, and to hear the concerns of the staff and to move in the direction of accommodating where it makes sense and doing that as part of an organized process. And I think that's very important because it sets the tone for relationships, and it also sets the idea that there's listening going on at all levels. So I think that's really important for people to understand. And the second thing is that sort of a part of this is an incentive to really encourage people to live within the district and to have their kids be a part of this district. So it's a real vote of confidence, I think, all the way around, that we're all in this together and that we realize there are issues collectively as the community, and that we're not just sitting around talking about it. This is tangible evidence that we're actually doing something. So from the public standpoint, this, I know a lot of times this really sounds like, frankly, bureaucratic nonsense. Totally get that. But these are practical things, and sometimes hidden in all the language are very practical results. So I just have to say I'm really in favor of these, and my thanks really to the board members, administration, and to the REA members for really putting a lot of thought into this. And so this is a good idea.
The coordinator then call the roll on approval of item 11D, the memorandum of understanding for RPS family attendance.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
And I'll take a motion and a second for item 11E, which is the Memorandum of Understanding for Credible Movement for Speech and Language Pathologists and Psychologists.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor, second by Ms. McCulloch. Questions or discussion?
Again, if I'll continue the pattern of providing an overview per Mrs. McCulloch's request. This attempted to address an issue with a couple things. One is with speech pathologists and psychologists, there was a market inefficiency in terms of how we looked at a master's degree in those areas. For both of those groups, a master's degree actually takes a significant number of additional credit hours, and in both cases, that was, and specifically in the speech language category, that was being recognized in virtually every other district in the region. There was also a national shortage that was causing real issues as well. So what this does, quite simply, is acknowledge that a master's degree starts someone at master's plus 20 on the pay scale, for those that are familiar with the way Lanes and Steps salary schedule works. If someone was already at plus 10 or plus 20, they would move 20, but as the language indicates, no one would exceed the maximum of master's plus 40. I believe this will allow a more competitive position for us. We've consistently had to invest. Last year, as recently as last year, we invested $1 million to outsource hiring speech pathologists for about 10 employees. The average cost was about $100,000 per employee. Under this proposal, the majority of this program, if not all of it, will be paid for through savings on not having to pay additional costs to outsource that. So this was really a cost-neutral initiative that will make us competitive in that regard. And not to say anything disparaging about folks that have been here as part of contracted work services, but we do think there is a competitive advantage to having people be our employees that are fully committed and invested to the Rockford Public Schools. So I think there are multiple benefits here. We also addressed any market inefficiencies that came to where psychologists landed as well. And I think this was a very important collaborative discussion. We're continuing to have conversations at the bargaining table with other groups that have master's degrees that go beyond 20, but we wanted to prioritize these two groups specifically because of what we really consider to be a two-part test. One, does the master's degree take more than 36 hours, which was yes in both these cases, and two, is there a significant market inefficiency that's created in terms of our ability to recruit people for positions and retain people? And in both cases here, that was yes. And again, we were happy to work collaboratively with the REA board and administration to come up with what we think is a very solid proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Connor?
Do you want to go first? Go ahead. So I'm enjoying my role here as translator. So it's always interesting to hear the complete picture, but this is very important for two reasons. One is this is really going to be more cost effective when it comes down to it. But number two, more importantly, that the quality and the emphasis on two very hard to find skills, speech and language and psychologists, is now being addressed. So again, this is a practical step. So I feel kind of like those people that have always translated for the head of the Federal Reserve. You know, it takes them 50 pages to say what takes 2 minutes. But, you know, I'm just saying.
Okay.
But
So does that mean I can count you down for your 2 minutes?
that's my 2 minutes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. Ms. McCulloch?
Mine's faster. I just applaud, kudos to the therapists, the speech therapist paths who stayed with us, waiting for this, who very respectfully pled their case, to the psychologists, and because we have a real dedicated staff, and I think this is very deserving, so thank you.
Okay, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of item 11E.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
The next one is the exciting 11F for RPS Employer Assisted Housing Program. Dr. Jarrett, you want to give it?
we need a motion, a second.
Oh, I need a motion and a second.
So
first.
moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor, second by Mr. Siegel.
All right, on this one, first of all, before I go into an overview, I do want to request that there was I know this was requested multiple times and somehow it didn't make it, so on number 6, it says, in any given fiscal year, up to a minimum of $250,000. I think it'll be important to our partners at the REA, our board, and our administration that read up to a maximum of $250,000. I don't think we want to set that as a minimum. And now on to the overview. I will try to avoid the need for translation this time. I think one distinction I want to make right out of the gate is this is not to be confused with another housing incentive program that is already in place. We are proud to partner with the city, the Park District, and the Library Board to offer incentives for anybody who lives in the community. If you purchase a new home that in an already platted subdivision, there's a 3-year waiver on a rebate on property taxes for eligible homes, and there are also eligibility provisions for some blighted properties as well. So that is exciting, and we hear housing starts are up and that the program seems to be off to a very good start. But that is not what we're here to talk about tonight. I just wanted to separate this. This is a specific issue which has been in the works for multiple years. Again, a collaborative effort where we've been talking with board, REA, and administration about how do we continue the process to encourage employees to want to buy a home. I think there's a colloquial expression that's out there to eat your own cooking. And so I think we want people who work and benefit from our tax base to be incentivized to live in our tax base. And so it's this incentive program essentially does that in 2 ways. One, if you purchase a home that is a short sale or is in any way a blighted home, there is a larger total rebate that you can receive, up to $20,000, or any home that an employee purchases that is a member of the REA can be up to $10,000. So this is a great way to say, not only do we want you to work in our district, we'd like you to live in our district and ultimately send your children to school in our district. And it really is a nice companion piece to the other, and really has always been discussed in consort with the first MOU we discussed tonight about bringing children to the school in which the parent works. It's another way to encourage that loyalty and that connection. It is a pilot program, as is the other one, and if for whatever reason we find it's working too well or not well enough, the board will have an opportunity to revisit this shortly. But we feel like this is another way to grow the pie in terms of equalize assessed value and incentivize people to live in the community where they work.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Connor?
I'm just going to say another great example of a very practical step that's taken a long time to come to fruition. So really well done all the way around. And this is another tangible step in us investing in our community.
I'm all about the kudos. So Mr. Rollins is not here tonight, but I'd like to say that he was the genesis for both of these. His focus is so much wider than just the school district. It's how do we bring this community back? And so good job, Tim.
Thank you. Okay, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of 11F, the Employer Assisted Housing Program.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Take a motion and a second to approve item 11G, the Memorandum of Understanding for Paid Leave.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion? We'll start with Dr. Jarrett.
I will defer to Ms. Holder.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Holder.
All right. This one just recognizes the ability of the superintendent to grant a discretionary leave under certain circumstances. The impetus of this agreement arose when a member, an REA member, was attempting to adopt a child. Under our current policy and state law, they can use sick leave for adoption purposes or maternity purposes, the birth of a child or the adoption of a child, but adoption is narrowly defined as the actual placement of a child. And when there can be a whole lot of pre-activity that occurs before that placement. And so this recognizes the ability of the superintendent to grant a discretionary leave under certain circumstances.
Okay, questions or comments?
Ditto. This is, again, great collaboration, great work.
Have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of item 11G, the paid leave memorandum of understanding.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch? Yes. Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Take a motion and a second for item 11H, which is the prevailing wage resolution. 11H.
Thank you. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor. Is there a
Second.
second? Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion on the prevailing wage resolution? Mr. Siegel.
Yes. I,
Oh, you don't have any questions? Okay. All right.
Just wanted to,
Ms. McCulloch?
I just wanted elucidation from
Okay.
the legal
Mrs.
counsel.
Mrs. Holdley, would you?
'Cause this is based
give
on
a-
a chain, on law, legal.
See you go on vacation. Can't remember how to run
Yeah,
it.
I don't remember. I have to go back on vacation.
Okay.
This is a standard resolution that has to be adopted on an annual basis by the Board of Education. This year, it's a little bit different because the state of Illinois has not updated the prevailing wages. So once, it doesn't mean that our contractors are not required to update their prevailing wages when the state does, but we have to give annual notice, and this is what this does.
Mr. Connor?
Would it be fair to say that essentially, I don't want to use the word forced, but we really are compelled to do this every year?
We are forced to do this every year. yes.
Okay. I was going to use a lesser word, but all right, I'm good with that word.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of item 11H, prevailing wage resolution.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Thank you. We're now at the closed session consent agenda items, including the appointment of Jeremy Brown as a 10-month dean, the appointment of Ryan Notchreiner as a 10-month middle school assistant principal, appointment of Carolyn Tim as an 11-month principal, the appointment of Joanne Kirschbaum as a 12-month certified executive director of elementary education, the appointment of Maisel Nascimento as the 12-month executive director of bilingual program, the appointment of Dr. Brett Gobelli as the 12-month special education administrator, the appointment of Lucille Melchert as a 12-month special education administrator, and the appointment of Joseph Rue as a 12-month special education administrator, the appeal of the uniform grievance decision pursuant to Board Policy 2.260, the HR organizational report and addendum, and the closed session consent items, including the student discipline in which expelled or suspended students are prohibited from being on school grounds and school-sponsored activities without the prior written permission of the principal. Students QLH 4, MOC 19, CP 22, and CDC 24 are expelled for the entire 2016-17 school year. The expulsions for TTH 23, KAP 25, JDC 28, JKR 29, NMD 31, and DDM 33 are held in abeyance contingent upon expulsion and abeyance agreement for the entire 2016-17 school year. And the following closed session consent items for the EIAs for students DMH1, SNED2, SNS3, TUJ5, AEM7, CMR8, DCN9, NVW10, JEP11, student JCH12, NTT14, AAH15, and MNYS16. Is there a motion and a second to approve these closed session consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Are there any items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Thank you. No, so I will have the coordinator then call the roll on the closed session consent item approvals.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Jarrett.
For tonight's report, I really want to focus again on one really important issue, and that is the lack of a state budget that funds K-12 education, or frankly, anything at this point in Springfield. And I've had the opportunity to speak with our lobbyist, along with I've spoken to 3 of our local legislators about this issue, and we have significant concerns. We are going to be continuing to work with our REA partners, our board, and our community to look at how this is going to impact the Rockford Public Schools in the future, and this will be an issue that I hope will be resolved prior to our next board meeting. If it is not, then we will be bringing forward different proposals for your consideration in terms of how we will deal with a school year that would be missing about, I would say, at least 50% of our annual revenue. I can tell you that if you chart that out, that doesn't look good. However, I remain very, very confident that our legislators will come to some kind of resolution, but we will prepare for a worst-case scenario if that contingency does unfold and has not been resolved prior to the July 12th board meeting. We will certainly, at that point, have additional conversations about what our strategy will be. Really, there are very few options that come up at that point. One option is that you spend reserves and local property tax dollars as long as you can. Then the next step is involving other borrowing strategies. We will have to formulate that strategy, and the board is going to have to decide what your appetite will be for those different issues. Again, this is preparing for the worst. We don't want to just start having these conversations at the last minute, because we have a lot of people that we have to consult with as we make the decision. So there will be more to come on that. Again, in talking to our local legislators, I think they all remain hopeful that there will be a resolution. And if that occurs, in most scenarios, it is looking like the Rockford Public Schools will actually have additional funding dollars. Most of the models that are out there show 100% proration or 100% funding of the general state aid model for the first time in 5 years. So it's a real mixed bag for us. If we ever do get a budget, it's very possible it will come in better than what we expected. So we really want to encourage at tomorrow's big day in Springfield. It'll be the first session that our legislators have had the opportunity to attend. I wanted to make sure I made, in my phone calls today, encouraged all of them to continue to do the hard work of representing our district and to come forward with both a good funding formula for K-12 education and a state budget. So we are hopeful that that will occur. And boy, I'd love to talk about a lot of other subjects, but that's kind of at the top of my mind tonight.
I understand. We'll move on then to committee reports. Ms. McCulloch, Education Committee.
Education Committee has not met since our last meeting, and as we work through what our committee purpose and structures are going to be, I'm not sure if we're meeting in July either.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Would think so. Budget and Finance Committee, they have not met, right? Yeah, right, sure. And Operations Committee, Mr. Connor?
Operations Committee has not met. We are scheduled to meet in this room on July the 5th at 5:30.
Okay, very good. And we are still working on the purpose of the committee's statement. We are. So. Our first action item tonight,
Can we
then.
take A through E together, Lori?
A through D? A through D, okay. So we're now on to board policies. So can I have a motion to approve the, I'm sorry, not board policies. These are resolutions for eminent domain. A little typo there, okay. So these are for authorization of eminent domain for 1619 Second Avenue, 1607 Second Avenue, 314 12th Street, and 304 12th Street, which all are linked to the Lincoln School green space expansion. Is there a motion and a second to approve those resolutions?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Any discussion or question? Mr. Connor?
So number one, I know we've said this before, but I really want to remind the public, this is really a last resort. Nobody, I don't believe, on the board likes this option, but there have been good faith attempts to get a hold of some of the property owners, and there have been many difficulties with that, so the administrative staff have put these 4 eminent domains in place. Again, this is really our last option, so we do it with reluctance, but we are nonetheless on the edge of really needing to do this. So really want people to know this is not done lightly, and don't like it.
No other comments? Then I have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of the resolutions for eminent domain for those 4 properties.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
Our next action item for tonight is the resolution to adopt the 2016-17 budget. Is there a motion and a second to approve the resolution?
So moved.
By Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Connor.
This one is just, number one, I want to thank the administration for really making the budget process work better this year, and I expect next year it will work really even better, but really kudos to the financial staff. I know that they've worked really hard, and kudos to the administration in general. This has not been easy, as the superintendent said. We've had a lot of issues over the last year in terms of funding and planning and the assumptions. So again, from the public standpoint, this is truly not easy. It's a complex process. So I really want to thank everybody for putting best efforts on this. And I think there's going to be a lot of challenges this year. And I think the Budget and Finance Committee is really, they're going to earn their keep on that one, because this is not going to be easy. So I would say really good work all the way around.
Okay, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the adoption of the 2016 budget. 2016-17 budget.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 4 yeses, 3 absent.
We'll now move on to new business. Mr. Smith is going to present real estate purchase, 1606 Charles Street.
Yes, as part of the facilities master plan, we're acquiring 11 properties at Lincoln Middle School. One of the properties we have right here, we have reached an agreement with the owner of the property for $35,000. We would like to purchase that property to help with the expansion of the green space at Lincoln Middle School.
Okay. Any discussion or questions or comments? This will be presented at our July 12th board meeting for approval then. Our final item tonight is the resolution appointing a concussion oversight team. And Mrs. Holdy, you're on that one.
Perhaps Ms. Fisher, as one of her last
Yeah.
opportunities to address the
All right,
board, would
so-
like to present this.
Sure. We can find other things for you to do if you're looking for other things.
First of all, thank you for recognizing me. It has been a pleasure and an honor.
Great.
So what we're asking you to do is to allow us to form a committee for a concussion oversight team, and I think you have a listing of all of the members that would be part of that team. Questions?
Comments or questions? Mr. Siegel.
My only one is, was there a particular physician volunteer, I don't need names, but you had somebody lined up who was interested in doing this?
We do. Dr. Jeffrey Royce has already volunteered to lead the team, if you will. He's thrilled.
Okay, Mr. Conn?
I assume that this is really getting to be kind of a standard, given all the intention that's been placed on concussion. And so this is really both, I would assume, sort of after the fact as well as preventative in nature in terms of this particular team, this concussion oversight. So it's really the entire picture.
Yes,
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this will be presented for approval at our next board meeting on July 12th, I believe. Any other new business for tonight? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor. Second by Ms. McCullough. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 8:16. See?